All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack a really powerful idea, one that has echoed through history for thousands of years. It's this ancient, deep-seated hope for an ideal king, a perfect ruler who could finally, actually, set the world right. So, our story really kicks off with this fascinating image from the prophet Isaiah. I mean, just picture it. A living, green shoot pushing its way out of what looks like a dead, chopped-down tree stump. It's all about new life coming from a place that looks completely finished. And this image is really asking a huge question, one that's at the very heart of what we're talking about today. When a legacy seems over, when the future looks totally bleak, where does hope even come from? How does it start? Well, to get it, we've got to go way back to the 8th century BC. Isaiah was speaking at a time of real crisis. That stump of Jesse he mentioned, that was a symbol for the royal family of King David. And at the time, it seemed to be failing, big time. This great family tree that was promised to rule forever, it looked like it was getting the axe. It's right in the middle of all this disappointment that the hope for a Messiah really starts to change. Now, the word itself just means anointed one, but it began to take on a whole new meaning, a whole new weight. And this is where it gets really interesting. See, originally, Messiah was basically just a job title. Any king who got anointed with oil was a Messiah. Didn't matter if he was good or awful. But as people got fed up with one bad ruler after another, the idea evolved. It wasn't just a Messiah anymore, it became a hope for the Messiah, a future perfect king who would finally get it right. So, what's the deal with this ideal king? I mean, what would he actually be like? What makes him so different? Well, the descriptions we get are super specific and, honestly, pretty radical. First thing you gotta know, he doesn't judge by appearances. He isn't swayed by what he sees on the surface, or by rumors, or by what's popular. He sees straight through all of that, right to the heart of the matter. And this, right here, is the core of it all. Our world so often favors the rich, the powerful, the well-connected, but this king, his entire mission, his whole purpose, is to bring justice to the poor and the humble. He's the ultimate champion for those who have no one else. So what's his guide? His North Star? The text says he's filled with the fear of the Lord. Now, that doesn't mean he's terrified. It's not about fear in that sense. Think of it more like a deep, family-like respect and trust in God, which means every single one of his decisions is perfectly aligned with God's desire for justice. And check this out. His power source is completely different too. He doesn't have a massive army or stockpile of weapons. His power comes from the rod of his mouth and the breath of his lips. It's the force of his words, of his truth. And his armor? It's just a belt of justice and a sash of faithfulness. So, when you have a king who rules with perfect justice like that, what happens? What does that world actually look like? Well, the result is so wild, so completely world-changing, that Isaiah has to use a fable just to describe it. I mean, just picture this. A world totally flipped on its head. Natural enemies, a wolf and a lamb, a leopard and a goat, are just hanging out, living in peace. And the most vulnerable people you can imagine, a little child or even a baby, are totally safe from any harm. And right there, that's the whole point. Obviously, this isn't a literal prediction about what's going to happen at the zoo. It's this beautiful, powerful metaphor for a time when human conflict, greed, and injustice are just over. It's a vision of total, absolute peace. Now, what's so important to get here is that this incredible vision of peace, it wasn't for some exclusive club. It wasn't just for one small group of people. From the very beginning, the idea was that this would be for everyone. It was universal. You see it right here in the Psalms and in other places too. The prophecies are clear. This king would be like a flag, a beacon for all the nations to look to. He'd be a source of blessing for every single family on the planet. Okay, so let's fast forward a few centuries. The Apostle Paul takes this ancient hope and applies it to a real, messy human conflict. In the early church in Rome, you had these two groups, Christians who came from a Jewish background and Christians who came from a non-Jewish or Gentile background. And they were clashing, judging each other over things like food laws and traditions. So what does Paul say? His instruction is so simple, but so deep. He just says, welcome each other. He argues that this Messiah figure came to fulfill the promises God made to the Jewish people and to extend that same mercy to all the other nations. The point was to unite them, to show that the promise was for everybody. So for hundreds of years, this hope is just simmering, waiting. It's this powerful, burning expectation. And then, all of a sudden, this urgent voice erupts from the desert, announcing that the long, long wait is finally over. This guy, John the Baptist, just shows up on the scene. And everything about him is intense. He's dressed like the old prophets, eating locusts and wild honey out in the desert. He screamed authenticity. And his message was electric. Change your ways, turn your lives around, because the kingdom you've been waiting for, it's here. Now, John was baptizing people in water, which was this powerful outward sign that they wanted to change. But he was very clear. He said, look, the one who's coming after me is on a whole other level. He's going to baptize with spirit and fire. He wasn't talking about a human ritual, but a divine act that purifies a person from the inside out. And listen to this. He brings back that same tree imagery we started with, but now, man, there's a new urgency. He says the axe is already at the root of the trees. The time for choosing, for a real gut check, it wasn't coming. It had arrived. But here's what you've got to understand. When he talks about fire, he's not talking about just burning everything down. The fire he's talking about is for purification. He compares it to a farmer separating the good stuff, the wheat, from the useless stuff, the chaff. The goal isn't to destroy, it's to save everything valuable within a person. So, John has done his job, he's the herald, he's sounded the alarm and pointed the way. This ancient promise is about to become a present-day reality, which leaves us with the biggest question of all. What happens next? What happens when the world finally comes face to face with its ideal king?